When I was around 10 years old, I was introduced to my very best friend Henry in the wonderful world of computing. Oftentimes, while over at Henry's house, we would be playing video games with his brother, and we'd get into arguments about whether or not his Macintosh computer was inferior to our mighty PCs back in the day. In today's speech, I hope to not only convince you that Macintosh computer products are inferior to Wintel or Windows and Intel built computer systems, and that Macs are severely overpriced for the quality that you get. I believe this is a very important topic for everyone that uses computers to know, because it's important for people to understand where we're going and where the computers have come from. For the past 15 years, I've been really interested in computers and how they work and all of their applications that they can be applied to. And I've avidly kept up with the advancements that have been made in that field. Like I said before, I was introduced to computers by my best friend Henry at a very young age, and back then we would mostly just play video games, but as I got older and understood that computers could be used for a lot more situations, I got more interested into it, I guess. While I have a lot of computer experience and knowledge myself, I had to go seek more information about all of the smaller details about the Apple versus PC debate from back in the early 2000s and late 1990s. I found my research on the websites tomshardware.com and the Apple support page. And then I also watch a YouTube blog quite often called Lioness Tech Tips, and he's very helpful on knowing what computer products are worth the money that they ask for. Furthermore, in today's speech, I would like to explain the differences between the two computer brands, point out some strengths and weaknesses of both, and overall explain why buying a Mac at this point in time is not an ideal purchase. I will also provide you some alternate choices and hopefully give you a new outlook on the computer industry. But first, let me shed some light on the issues for you to better understand. Do any of you remember the commercial, "I'm a Mac and you're a PC" from back in the early 2000s? If not, it was a commercial in the early 2000s where Mac was trying to advertise that they were different than all of the other computer products and better overall for a personal day-to-day computer use. And then in 2005, Macintosh announces that they will be switching to Intel-powered machines just like their competitors, so that they can become competitive with them again. This change that Macintosh made to their hardware re-energized their computer lineup and allowed them to do more, or to add more machines to their arsenal. By loading up their already superior computers with Intel parts that somehow made them even better than the Wintel competitors they were fighting against. But let's look at these numbers to really get into the nitty-gritty about whether an Apple is better than an Intel. So I've taken two high-performance laptops from both Mac and Intel, and I'd like to go over some of the statistics. The Intel, while has a 2.9 gigahertz processor, which is quite lacking in power compared to a Dell 19-inch Alienware's computer or laptop at a 4.4 gigahertz processor. While they're the same generation and everything, the Intel or the Alienware processor is about 2 times powerful. They both have 16 gigs of RAM, which is the memory your computer needs to process information, except for Macintosh is using LPDDR3 RAM, which is low power DDR3 from like 5 years ago, while Alienware's kept up and is using high-tech DDR4, which is about twice as fast as the DDR3 in the Mac. With this purchase of a MacBook Pro, you only get 250 gigabytes in your solid state, and from Alienware you get a terabyte plus a 228 gigabyte boot drive. Another big issue that, well, maybe not issue, another big factor that needs to be pointed out is that the Mac only has a Radeon Pro 560 graphics card, which baffles me because for the money that you're paying, you should be getting at least a Radeon 1040 or a GTX 1060. And that's exactly what the Alienware gives you in its lineup. The biggest shock between these two computers comes when you look at the Mac's price compared to the Alienware price, and it's about $700 difference when the Alienware would run circles around that Mac. Now, these aren't the same kind of comparable numbers that you would have 13 years ago when Mac initially made their transfer. But now it's quite clear that the Alienware is still a better computer. In a vlog done by Linus Tech Tips, Linus explains that since the 2005 switch from the IBM hardware in Macs to the Intel hardware that they're now using, quite a few Macintosh enthusiasts feel as though the spirit of innovation that Mac was built on is gone. When Steve Jobs started making computers back in the 1980s, Mac was blowing the socks off of everybody, IBM, Wintel, and nobody can compete because it was so simple to use and so sophisticated that it was almost just talking to the consumer, and it was just working on a one-on-one field with them. But in 1994, everything was about to change for Mac because Wintel finally developed their Windows 95, which put Mac on their heels. Windows 95 is the first representation of the Windows programs we get to use today, and while it's a very basic representation, it's a good starting point, or it's a good point to look at where Windows came from. I have today some parts so that you might better understand what I was talking about, from the processors to different pieces. While back in the 2000s, the Mac processors were much smaller, probably about half the size, this is what all the processors in almost every computer around the world looks like today. And then we have 2 pieces of RAM, which is also every computer uses. These are DDR3, same version that's put in the MacBook Pros, but these are from 4 years ago when I built my very first gaming rig. And this is a video card. It's not very important to, I guess, the presentation, because video cards nowadays are much smaller, and in laptops especially. I would like to share also a few tips with you that could help you in your future computer purchases. A good place to start when looking at a laptop is go to the base model right away and see what kinds of things they offer and what kinds of things they don't, with the upgrades and the customizations you can do to it. Because that's going to be a good starting point to know how far you can go and what price points you can look at. If you're looking to invest in a pre-built desktop from one of the large computer companies, don't do it. You can build a much higher quality desktop that runs faster for much lower price if you do it on your own. And it's really not that difficult. And the third thing is, this may be elementary, but read all of the specs, absolutely everything. You want to know what kind of screens you're going to get, what kind of battery is going to be inside of it, everything. But overall, you want to be confident in your purchase. This may also sound a little silly, but purchasing a PC can be a really big deal for some people, and especially to college students. If I could save a couple $100 on a higher quality PC, I would really like to do that, wouldn't you?